The Toronto Island ferries connect the Toronto Islands in Lake Ontario to the mainland of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The main city-operated ferry services carry passengers all and commercial vehicles, some from the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal at the foot of Bay Street to 3 docks on the islands. Private motor vehicles are not carried. The ferry, operated by Ports Toronto, carries passengers and vehicles to Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport on the island from the foot of Irene Quay. Additional private ferries carry passengers to various island boat clubs. Ferry services to the islands began in 1833, and the Toronto Island Ferry Company began in 1883. Service routes of the Toronto Island ferries. There are 4 public ferry routes to the islands. 3 routes run from the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal to the Toronto Island Park. A 4th route runs from the foot of Bathurst Street to Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport on the island. Beside the public ferry services, several yacht clubs and marinas located on the islands provide private ferry services for their members and guests. 1 to 3 private water taxi services. 4 are available from locations along the waterfront. The Parks, Forestry and Recreation Division of the City of Toronto government operates 3 public ferry routes to Hanlan's Point, Centre Island Park, and Wards Island from Jack Layton Terminal at the foot of Bay Street on the central Toronto waterfront. During spring and fall, the ferries operate on a 45-minute round trip. During summer months, the ferries make a round trip each half hour. During the winter months, ferries serve Wards Island at longer intervals, and Hanlan's Point only as needed to deliver or pick up vehicles. 5. As of 2022, the adult fare is $8.7, with various reduced fares for seniors 65 and over, youth 15 to 19 and junior 2 to 14. Infants under 2 ride free. Monthly passes are available by age category. 6. The ferries operating from the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal carry 1.4 million people each year to the islands, making 17,000 trips. There are up to 5 ferries available for this service. One ferry, the Trillium, is a semi-retired heritage vessel that sees only occasional service. Only one ferry, the Onjara, operates in winter, servicing the Wards Island dock. It can carry road vehicles as well as passengers. 7. Harbourfront Centre is a cultural organization on the waterfront of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, situated at 235 Queens Quay West. Established as a Crown Corporation in 1972, dubious discuss by the Government of Canada to create a waterfront park, it became a non-profit organization in 1991. Funding comes from corporate sponsors, government grants, individual donors, and entrepreneurial activities. Harbourfront Centre has a seating capacity of 2,000. Harbourfront Centre works with over 450 community organizations and hosts more than 4,000 events a year in many disciplines such as theatre, dance, literature, music, film, visual arts, and craft. 1. The development is governed by a 26-person community-based volunteer board of directors and is assisted by approximately 2,000 volunteers who generously contribute their efforts and time. Harbourfront Centre is patrolled by its own in-house security team, which works closely with police to ensure that the property is protected. Historiqueans Quay Terminal was remodeled in 1982 in an effort to revitalize Harbourfront Centre. The Government of Canada faced mounting criticism from the City of Toronto government due to the amount of money being spent for Montreal on both Expo 67 and the 1976 Summer Olympics. Hence, the Government of Canada decided that it would build Harbourfront Centre and the Government of Ontario would build nearby Ontario Place in order to revitalize Toronto's industrial harbour and increase tourism to the city. As a result, the Government of Canada committed to buying 100 hectares of land to be appropriated for public use. In 1972, Harbourfront Corporation was established as a federal Crown Corporation. In 1975, the top portion of the CN Tower was housed at Harbourfront Centre, and schoolchildren were asked to sign it before it was installed. In the following decades, the area saw a number of uses, hosting children's summer day camps in 1978, and hosting the Cirque du Soleil, which performed in the area in 1985. The first WOMED festival in Canada was held at Harbourfront Centre in 1988. Harbourfront Centre was formed on January 1, 1991, as a non-profit charitable organization with a mandate to organize and present public events, and to operate a 10-acre 40,000 site encompassing York Quay and John Quay south of Queens Quay West. In 1982, Queens Quay Terminal was remodeled by Zeidler Partnership Architects, the same firm that designed the Toronto Eaton Centre. The project transformed the industrial space into a mixed-use building that included shops, restaurants, offices, and exclusive residential condos. It once was the home for Premier Mike Harris. The concert stage at Harbourfront Centre hosts performances for the public. Since its inception, Harbourfront Centre has been introducing Toronto audiences to artists and art forms that would not normally be seen in commercial venues. Artists who have performed at Harbourfront Centre: Celine Dion, Oscar Peterson, Robert Lepage, Stomp, Julio Iglesias, Spalding Gray, Philip Glass, Anne Murray, K.D. Lang, Jim Carrey, Feist, Lillian Allen, and Gordon Lightfoot. Citation needed. In 2001, Harbourfront Centre organized World Leaders, a festival of creative genius, to pay homage to 14 renowned global cultural leaders. The participating artists included Issey Miyake, Guy Lalibert, Felipe Stark, Frank Gehry, Lily Tomlin, Stephen Sondheim, Bernardo Bertolucci, Robert Rauschenberg, Harold Pinter, Joni Mitchell, Robert Lepage, Peter Gabriel, Quincy Jones, and Pina Bausch. Citation needed. Each artist had a dedicated night where they received an award and delivered a talk. In 2004, Harbourfront Centre has hosted the Planet Indigenous Festival, a multi-day celebration and global exploration of contemporary Indigenous civilizations. Queens Quay Terminal is a condominium, apartment, office, and retail complex in the Harbourfront neighborhood in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It was originally built in 1927 as a marine terminal with office, warehouse, and cold storage facilities. When shipping to Toronto declined in the 1960s and 1972, the building was bought by the Government of Canada to be repurposed along with a section of the industrial waterfront. The terminal building itself was rebuilt in the 1980s, with the addition of 4 floors of residential above the original facility, which was converted into retail and office uses. The cold storage wing was demolished, and its plant building became the Power Plant Gallery and Harbourfront Centre Theatre. Historimage of Terminal Warehouse from the North in 1929. The building was originally a cold storage warehouse facility, known as the Toronto Terminal Warehouse. It was built by Moores and Dunford of New York City. The first sod was turned in April 1964, and it opened in February 1927. The building was accessible to both CN and CP rail lines and Great Lakes steamships. 5. It was the first poured concrete building in Canada. 3. And one of the largest buildings in the country. 6. It had over 1 million square feet 93,000 of floor space. 7. The main storage building was 420 by 200 feet 128 meters. And the cold storage wing was 140 by 220 feet 43 67 both 8 stories in height. 8. The floors were designed overly strong to hold 800 pounds 36 oak gg per square foot. The ice, heating, and power plants were in a separate building to the west. The building had a state-of-the-art ice plant, ventilation and sprinkler system, and rail sidings right into the building to eliminate trucking. 6. The building was adorned with the neon Terminal Warehouse sign, and each wing, dry storage, cold storage, and ice plant also had a rooftop neon sign. The cost $7,121 million in 2023 $9 structure was built on a 14.5 acres 5.9 ha site. 8. The site was a former water lot land filled by the Toronto Harbour Commission and was sold at $55,000 per acre. Tenet was supported by 10,000 wooden piles driven 10 meters 33 f through landfill to the bedrock of Toronto Harbour. 500 workers were employed in its construction. 1 worker, Duncan Murray, died during construction from a fall at the site. 12. The building was used for offices, cold storage, bonded storage, and light manufacturing. Among its tenants was the Minister of Customs and Excise, the Canadian Donut Company Ltd., Elizabeth Arden, and Black & Decker. Its use as a marine terminal declined in the 1960s as container facilities opened in the east part of the harbor. 6. Also, although the Stede Lawrence Seaway had opened in 1959, shipping to Toronto declined as container shipping ports in Montreal and Halifax took over as ports of entry for international shipments to Canada. According to the renovation architect Eberhard Zeidler, the building had fallen into disrepair, its roof and concrete in poor condition. 3. Its clock tower had not worked in several years due to a rusted clock face. 2. View of freighters at Dock and Terminal Building, 1936. In 1972, the Government of Canada created the Harbourfront Corporation to repurpose 86 acres 35/13 of industrial harbourfront lands west of York Street for cultural, recreation, parkland, and residential uses. In 1973, it purchased the terminal warehouse property for $7 to $5 million from the Pitts & Co. of New York City. 13. Metro Toronto's Parks Commissioner Tommy Thompson called for the demolition of the building, calling it a monstrosity on the waterfront. 13. The Southwest Cold Storage Wing was demolished. 14. The area is now Canada Square between Queens Quay Terminal and the Harbourfront Centre Theatre. The terminal's plant building was converted to house the Power Plant Gallery and Harbourfront Centre Theatre. 15. The neighboring Direct Winters building, built by early owners of Terminal Warehouse, became the main complex for Harbourfront's recreational activities. It is now known as Harbourfront Centre. 6. A rail siding along the south facade of the building was converted to a public promenade that is also the location of the docks for sightseeing boat cruises of Toronto Harbour. The remaining building was converted to a residential, office, and retail complex in 1983. 3. The cost $60 million three-building rebuild was developed by Olympia and York, who negotiated a 99-year lease with the government. 16. The renovations by Zeidler Roberts 17 added 4 floors to the original 8-floor structure, for a total of 750,000 square feet. 17,000 m2 of space with 72 condominium apartments. 18. The renovation recoated the exterior with new concrete and new glass, and added new Art Deco-styled entrances for the office and residential tenants. 19. A feature of the renovation of the interior were several new atriums, including the arcade at the southeast corner, which reaches the full height of the building. 3. The residential section has a garden with a bridge and a swimming pool on the roof. The roof itself has a green patina metal cladding that is similar to the roofs of the nearby Toronto Union Station and Royal York Hotel. 20. The renovation added the K3, 9,450-seat, Premier Dance Theatre, which is rented by Harbourfront for K1 per year. 15. The stage has a sprung wood floor to be less harsh on dancers. In 2008, the Premier Dance Theatre was renovated and reopened as the Fleck Dance Theatre. 15. Although the concept design was by Zeidler, renovation was awarded a Governor-General's Medal for Architecture in 1986 and awarded the Ontario Association of Architects Architectural Excellence Award in 1989. 21. The New York Times mentioned it as an example of successful revitalization efforts in Toronto during the 1980s. The property was purchased by Brookfield Properties in October 1997 for $40 million. 23. Brookfield renovated the retail floors in 2017. The building is now owned by Northam Canadian Commercial Property Fund and Industrial Alliance Financial Group, and managed by Northam Realty Advisors Limited. 24. Facilities and tenants. Atrium. The facility has 494,901 square feet. 45,977, 8 m2 of retail and office space on 8 floors. 24. Yahoo! Canada, Anheuser-Busch InBev's Canadian unit, Labatt and Ports Toronto have offices in the building. The first floor has a grocery store, some shops, and several restaurants. The second floor has offices and the Pearl Harbor Front restaurant. The third floor is home to the Fleck Dance Theater. The terminal formerly was the site of the Museum of Inuit Art.